Same as last rule hearing, we're here to listen to you. We're not here to discuss or debate the rule. We're here to listen to your comments. Everybody will have 3 minutes to provide comments. We have the rule available. If you would like us to share on screen, we can do that. But we won't see you. You won't see us if we're sharing the screen. Also, we don't have our 3-minute timer. So if you are on screen, I'll raise my hand at the 3-minute mark. And then if you continue to move forward, I will let you know that your 3 minutes is expired. And then, we had some people wanting to go well over the 3 minutes last time. So we do have the ability to mute somebody. Hopefully we don't need to use that. But are there any questions on the process? If you have a question on the process, please raise your hand. You can either do it in person where your camera's on, or there's the raise your hand function in the meeting. Is this Teams or in Teams meeting? Sorry, I wasn't sure if it was Zoom or Teams. Bob Hunter, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I just noticed in the instructions that even if you go to the chat room, it shows everyone who's come up, but the instructions said you actually had to type your name in the chat message. And I just wanted to highlight that if that needs to be done, if someone wants to speak, because I'm not sure everyone's doing that who might want to speak.
So I think for the most part, when you log in, we see people's names. And I appreciate the comment, Bob.
Okay.
We do see everybody's name, but it'd be helpful if you did say your name when you started your comments. So are there any other comments? And we'll take this in the order as best we can in which you entered into the meeting. So that's how we're going to order it. I can't guarantee that we're going to be 100%, but that's our goal. But everybody will have 3 minutes to speak, assuming we can get that done before the 1 o'clock deadline. If there's no more questions, we'll open up the 3 minutes to our first participant, which was Bob Hunter. So whenever you're ready, Bob, go ahead.
Okay, well, my name is Bob Hunter. I live in Rouge, Oregon. And what I want to highlight first, I guess I'll speak to the new flow limitation. And I'll just say in respect to that, it's set so low that it really is meaningless. It would have affected maybe operations one time in the last 10 years and only a handful of times since Lost Creek went into effect. And in fact, a lot of harm is being done to the river at the flows that are operating now. And the reality is it's the charter boats that have created the greatest conflict and the most harm and are the most dangerous. And the rules, even with the flow limitations, they just carve out really exceptions that allow the charter boat business to continue to operate in the same manner as they have been. And it's them operating in that manner that has caused all the conflict and problem and harm to traditional uses in the river and everything like that. So the Marine Board's not really getting to the issue. And I will point out that the charter boat didn't really appear, the first, according to the Marine Board's own records, until 2014, the charter boat license was listed. And then 2015, a 10-passenger boat, and then later an 18 and 25-passenger boat. They're new on the scene. They're not a traditional use, and yet they're affecting all other traditional uses. And so I think that's a big failing of the rules to date. I think the best and simplest thing the Marine Board could do to address the issue is a lot of people have advocated for having the 10 horsepower restriction, not just from Dodge Bridge up, but all the way down to Table Rock Road Bridge. If it was extended down there, this would protect 7.3 additional miles of important main stem spawning habitat for spring Chinook salmon and winter steelhead. It would protect the most heavily used portion of Trouville State Park. It would protect the Denman Wildlife Area. It would protect the traditional uses and users of this section of the river and eliminate acute public safety issues. It would protect over 60 households living on the river would eliminate major conflicts on this section of river. It would still allow rogue jet boat adventures to continue in business that would still have access to Discovery Park and 5.5 miles of river to conduct tours downstream of the bridge. In fact, this is where the bulk of their business is. If a 10 horsepower limitation is applied year-round above Table Rock Road Bridge, then the seasonal limitations become less important. And if those limits were just applied to charter boats, then the few jet boats and motorboats that traditionally use the area downstream of Table Rock Road Bridge for guiding, fishing, duck hunting, and stuff would still be allowed in this section of river. A simplified rule would be just to again have the 10 horsepower limitation from Table Rock Road Bridge up to the dam, and then no charter boat operations allowed between the dates of September 10th and May 8th on the main stem of the road between Fisher's Ferry and Table Rock Road Bridge. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Now we'll go to Jim Andrus. Andrus?
Still on mute.
You're still on mute. We can't hear you.
It's muted now. Mute.
So you're off mute now. Sorry, we can't hear you. If you would like to log off and re-log in, we'll take the next commenter, and then when we see you again, we'll try again. Thank you. So let's move to Ms. Rania Hadid.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. My name is Rania Haddad. I live in White City. I'd like to discuss a proposal of mine, and it's a 10 horsepower restriction from the Table Rock Road Bridge to Lost Creek Dam all year round. I know it's the best solution. It's the simplest to enforce, and it will minimize safety, conflict, and environmental issues on the Upper Rogue. In 2011, Rogue Jet Boat Adventures started with one 6-passenger jet boat operating from a private property. Even then, people reported conflicts and safety concerns. 2015 was the very first time that a charter boat was used on the Upper Rogue. RJBA had a 10-passenger, 350 horsepower jet boat. They had a 1-year pilot program through the State Parks Department, and they were only allowed 4 trips per day during the summer. Parks Director Lisa Sumption refused to renew the contract because of conflicts reported by a portion of the 300,000 plus Tuville Park visitors. RJBA found loopholes, and charter boats kept on increasing in size, horsepower, and frequency. Safety and conflict issues on the river escalated as hundreds of citizens reported to state parks in 2022. At your October 2nd workshop, the man who runs RJBA, Mr. Taylor Grimes, told you he could stay in business if he's only allowed to operate from Table Rock Road Bridge downstream. So my proposal would not put him out of business. As you see from the hundreds of comments he received, the root cause of the conflicts and safety concerns is RJBA. The proposed OSMB staff ruling will not solve these conflicts or safety issues as it stands. Your proposed ruling keeps the charter company operating with business as usual, and it is vague. Who will monitor the number of trips? Is 5 p.m. the starting time or the ending time of their last trip? What prevents RJBA from getting 50 or 90 passenger boats? The simplest streamlined solution is to restrict watercraft above 10 horsepower from the Table Rock Road Bridge to Lost Creek Dam all year round. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Andrus, are you able to, or hopefully we're able to hear you?
Off mute. Still can't hear it.
Still can't. Do we have a dial-in number?
There is a dial number. And it is listed on our web page. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Same thing. If you were able to rejoin via telephone, we'll move on to the next speaker, and then we'll get back to you first thing once you rejoin. Apologies, I'm not sure what the issue is. With that, let's go to Ms. Knuckles.
Quick question, please. Am I still, how do I mute myself?
Oh, I'll do it for you.
Thank you
I
so
got it.
much. Thank you.
No, I don't have, this is Kathy Knuckles. I don't have anything to say. I'm just here to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, looks like Mr. Andrus. Are you there, Mr. Andrus? *6 unmutes you via the phone. You there?
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. I'm just joining in. This is the Marine Board meeting, right?
This is the Marine Board meeting.
Okay. I have not signed up. Do I have to sign up in some way to make a public comment first?
Oh, is this Jim Anders?
This is Noah Robinson, Senator Noah Robinson.
Okay, I apologize. We had directed a person to call earlier. So what we're doing is we're taking people as they join. Since you're just joining, you'll be added to the list, and we'll take you as you come in.
Sounds great.
So we'll be back. With that,
Okay. Thank you.
we'll go to Matthew. We don't have a last name.
All right. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, my name is Matthew Richardson. I am a fourth generation powerboat user of the Rogue River, and I'm here to advocate against the proposed restrictions of powerboat use on the upper Rogue River. These proposals that we've seen fundamentally conflict with Oregon's public trust doctrine, which mandates that our navigable waterways remain common highways and forever free for all public users, not riverfront property users. This includes navigation, recreation, and commerce. The Upper Rogue has a long history as a multi-use river, and these changes would unfairly exclude responsible powerboat users who have contributed to the local economy and river culture for decades. The low flow change to the rule shows that the rule proposal, or those that are proposing these rules, acknowledge that the Rogue is not a static body of water like a lake. Its flow and depth fluctuate dramatically throughout the year, often ranging from 3 feet to over 8 feet. These natural changes already regulate how and when various activities, including powerboating, can safely occur. Crafting rules based on a one-size-fits-all assumption that river conditions remain static ignores these fundamental realities and unfairly burdens powerboat users. Ian Reed in 2007 wrote a paper that had some findings on powerboat users and salmon. He said that the current level of motorboat activity on the Rogue and their associate wakes have minor effect on the psychology of migrating salmonoids and their thermal refuges on the lower Rogue River. What he is saying is that within 8 feet, salmon don't even acknowledge that a boat goes by. I appreciate that. And landowners along the river should not have oversized power to restrict public access to navigable waterways. The river belongs to all Oregonians, and any restriction must prioritize the broader public interest, not the preferences of a few private individuals. Allowing this imbalance sets a dangerous precedent that undermines the public trust values and equitable access. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So the next person on our list is Kevin Jansen.
I'm just here to listen.
All right, thank you. Francis, and I apologize again, I'm terrible with names. Oyen with the River Keepers.
Hi, Francis O. Young.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you hear me okay?
I
It's pretty
can.
much how it's spelled.
I appreciate that. I apologize.
All right. Thank you for your time and your service on this issue. My name is Francis O. Young. I live in Medford, Oregon, and am the Rogue River Keeper Program Manager for the Klamath-Siskiyou Wildland Center based in Ashland, Oregon, and I speak on behalf of Rogue River Keepers 4,000 supporters. Rogue River Keeper does not support the currently drafted proposed rule as it creates a carve out for one single business, Rogue Jet Boat Adventures, that is having the most harmful effects, environmental as well as others, with their hundreds of trips with large boats. Charter operations in this manner are not a traditional use. While power boats have been used in this section of the river for many decades, the large charter boats in the manner used by Rogue Jet Boat Adventures are not. The first charter boat license in the Rogue was issued only in the past couple decades. No charter boats were operating in the Upper Rogue before, say, 2011, 2014, and it is a non-traditional use. And the expansion and codification of this non-traditional use is what has been driving the public outcry and a call for regulation. You will observe that there was no big movement to regulate on this section of the river before this one business started increasing its size of boats and trips. So prior to that time, even power boats were coexisting with other user groups and not having as much impact on the river. Rogue River Keeper objects to the draft rule because it allows this one operator with the most impact to continue to operate in exactly the same manner as it has. The flow restriction will have no impact on that operator, as the flows rarely reach that level during their operating calendar, if at all. And the current carve out for the proposed rule will basically allow that one business to operate unimpeded, which is, if we're talking about fairness, that is not fair because there are other businesses actually which will be affected by the way you've drafted the rule. And so to state that also environmental stewardship is a priority for the Marine Board is not demonstrated in this rulemaking, and the 1350 CFS limit doesn't seem to be based on any particular objective analysis, and the latest iteration of prohibiting all boating when flows go beyond this unlikely and seemingly random volume of 1350 CFS will have zero impact on this one user, which is having the most impact. Thanks for your time, and I appreciate it, and I will be submitting written comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oyoung. All right. Jim Andrus, have you joined us?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Awesome.
All right. Go ahead
Okay,
and submit comment.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I have decided to shake up my testimony and forego further descriptions of a changing Upper Rogue River and the negative impacts commercial jet boats inflict on my guide service as well as other river users. However, I do believe that growing conflict between river users directly relates to the commercial business running boats carrying up to 25 passengers on the Upper Rogue, and find it ironic that Marine Board staff reviewed information from RJBA to make decisions in drafting the proposed rule, and consequently left the door open for the company to operate unregulated. As written in the new amendment to the proposed Marine Board rules, RJBA's operating season would remain the same. Their upstream and downstream navigation limits would remain the same. The number of trips upstream of Table Rock Road would remain the same. And the low flow closure, if adopted at 1350 CFS, will have little, if any, effect as river levels have reached this mark only 4 times in the last 50 years. This rule will lead us back to where we started and do nothing to alleviate conflict between commercial tour boat operators and traditional river users. Therefore, I recommend that the Marine Board modify the proposed rule to read as follows. For the Upper Rogue River and its tributaries, no person shall use a motor in excess of 10 horsepower to propel a boat between Fishers Ferry County Park and William L. Jess Dam. Notwithstanding the above provision, the use of motors above 10 horsepower are allowed between the dates of May 8th and September 10th on the main stem of the road between Fishers Ferry County Park and Table Rock Road Bridge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Andrus. All right, so Ms. Batzer.
Hello. Thank you so much for listening to all of us again today. You can hear me, right?
We can.
Thank you. So Upper Rogue Guardian is a response to a behemoth Rogue Jet Boat Adventures tour boats that, when all 3 travel together, are 1,650 horsepower and do thrill maneuvers, creating huge wakes and loud noise. Because we are traditional users of the river, floaters, fishers, and swimmers, we knew it was no longer safe to engage in these activities all summer. And fishing, because of the disturbed plant life, is impossible. We had questions about how this affects fish and wildlife. I have nothing but gratitude for exacting scientists like aquatic ecologist Michael Parker, PhD, who answered my 1,000 questions so then I could take action. OSMB staff proposal puts no restrictions on RJBA and does nothing to solve the hundreds of conflicts between RJBA and citizens. Here's why. At the October 2nd workshop in Medford, Taylor Grimes said he takes, quote, about 300 trips a year upstream from Table Rock Road. OSMB's rule says he can take 300 trips. The dates of May 8th to September 10th are right off RJBA's website. I appreciate the fact that Mr. Grimes let you know that he can get around your 300 charter boat trips rule by using 6 passenger boats. He also could add bigger boats with more than 25 passengers. No restrictions. The 1,350 CFS restriction will also not curtail his bottom line, as you will hear from others today. But now OSMB is saying it's going to cooperate with ODFW. What I'd like to know is, where was the cooperation before? For example, the Rogue River bisects the Denman Wildlife Area. ODFW oversees Denman and allows no boats with motors within it. I can understand how OSMB would allow boats with motors on the Rogue, but was there ever even one phone call between these 2 agencies about whether allowing 3 boats with a combined horsepower of 1,650 to continually bisect Denman is a good idea? You and State Parks asked for comments from citizens. Do you think the hundreds of citizens who reported to State Parks and you about their conflicts with RJBA, and many of these described life-threatening experiences, do you think these people are lying? Why has OSMB ignored these reports?
Ms. Batzer, your time has expired.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Now, Mr. Simpson, did you want to testify?
No, sir, just here to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Mr. Ball.
I'm just here to listen to and take notes.
Thank you. Mr. Counts,
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
we can.
Okay. Well, I'm Tom Counts. I have a house in Ashland and a regular user of the Rogue. The Marine Board members here are in a tough spot. ODFW has essentially abdicated its responsibility to the Marine Board to provide the scientific guidance that the board needs, claiming not to know where or when salmon or steelhead even spawn in the Rogue. So the ODFW should be embarrassed here, but instead, the Marine Board staff appears to rely on the jet boat company itself, the target of this rulemaking, as its source for input. The jet boat company says that it needs to be able to run 300 trips per season. So magically, the staff recommendation is for 300 trips. When staff thinks the proposed rule would be more palatable with a low flow restriction, the recommended 1350 threshold is carefully chosen so that it is at the precise level that will never impact the jet boat operation. I'll submit the data for that in my written comments, but in the last 10 years, there would be one day that fell below the flow restriction. But these difficulties with input should not resolve this board from doing the right thing. How many of you read the email from a Shady Cove resident who went on the jet boat tour himself and took pictures of a kayaker who was capsized by the wake of the jet boat? Did anyone reach out to ask that kayaker how the jet boats impacted their enjoyment of the Rogue River that day? The letters submitted to you provide descriptions of many similar incidents, so staff can't credibly say that there have been no incidents. I hate to say it, but at some point, someone will be seriously injured or killed as a result of jet boat activity, at which point the staff and this board will say, well, you know, we did absolutely everything we could do to prevent that. But that won't be true. Finally, the Marine Board staff shows its hand when it refers to the current charter boat use by a single private commercial operator as traditional. Exactly what definition of traditional is the staff applying? My dictionary says traditional means adhering or conforming to practices handed down from generation to generation. The jet boats have been running for a bit over 10 years. The real traditional users, fishermen, swimmers, floaters, drift boats, kayaks, canoes, they have been engaging in these activities on the road truly from generation to generation. Allowing a single private commercial enterprise to manifestly disrupt the real traditional public uses is what the regulation here should prevent. It's not that hard to designate the Rogue above Table Rock Road Bridge as off limits to large jet boats. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Counts. Ms. Roberts, did you want to testify today? Pauline Roberts, are you with us? Okay, so we'll move on to Ms. Grimes. Did you want to testify today?
Alan, this is Taylor Grimes. I will just go ahead and testify on behalf of both of us.
Okay, thank you, Taylor.
You're welcome. I'm just focusing on this 1350 CFS added to the proposed rule, and I'll be addressing other things at a later date. But I would just like the Marine Board to be aware that the public has a very hard time making educated comments on topics when the changes are published, you know, without specific reasons as to why the change is necessary, and then also backed up by, of course, data that shows why the change is being proposed. The public is kind of forced to speculate on a large portion of the change. This change occurs during non-critical spawning times in the mainstream of the Rogue and contradicts its presumed intent. It also contradicts existing factual studies done by ODF&W and targets, per published study, the least impactful user group to fish, juvenile fish. This added rule removes powerboats entirely, but after September 10th and just weeks before actual spawning occurs, regardless of water level, all other river users can be using the river during the actual critical spawning time for Chinook salmon. These users would be using, of course, outboard motors with props to tear up the river bottom, raking oars on the river gravels, and wading anglers, of course, all over the river bottom. We're also seeing this line of reasoning and other recommendations from ODF that have molded this proposed rule. And I would truly encourage the Marine Board to seek out some form of factual data that backs up any request. At this stage, the only thing this particular change is doing is seemingly the opposite for what it's intended for. It's very disheartening to continue to watch this non-factual, opinion-based methodology. I'd like to make certain the board members also know that powerboating on the river is self-regulating. They cannot be used in shallow water, and if somebody were to use it, the impact would fail in comparison to what the other river users have on the fishery. One could go as far to say with almost certainty this rule is based on favoritism and not actual data. I humbly request the board require factual data that includes all river user impact. So, here's what I've got so far on this. Between the dates of May 8th and September 10th, if the water level reaches 1,350 at Dodge Bridge, all boating stops after September 10th. Power boats are no longer able to use the river until May 8th of the following year, but the other boats that cannot use the river because of the 1,350 CFS condition can go back on the water during even lower water levels and during actual spawning taking place and use the river. So, I asked the board to consider what this is accomplishing. It's very concerning. And we also have to think about the fact that while 1350 may hit at Dodge Bridge, it's from Dodge Bridge down to Fisher's Ferry. And as we know, when we go upstream, less water flows upstream. So does that mean all the rafting stops and everything else stops? I mean, that's only fair. So anyway, I just wanted to thanks for the opportunity to comment. I wish everybody a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Now, Ms. James, are you here and planning on testifying today?
Yes.
Thank you.
I
Go
am.
ahead.
All right. I have to use my phone. I have lived on the Rogue River for over 30 years, almost 40. And so, yeah, I'm one of the few property owners of the 2,600 people that have sent in comments to state parks and to you now multiple times in Oregon Kitchen Table. And I'm very concerned that when we sounded the alarm like a canary in a gold mine and other people started adding their stories, I just wanted the commercial jet boats that were really causing the damage and the conflicts to be banned. But I was persuaded that that wasn't the totality of it and that you would never carve out a ban just for them. So I agree after listening to actual scientists and biologists and others that, the 10 horsepower was a fair ask of you. I never imagined that you would go conversely, completely ass backwards and carve out and enshrine the jet boats and take all the fishing guides and small recreational users off the river. I don't even understand how you reached that conclusion. I owned a jet boat for 35 years, a 22-foot jet craft with a 454. We were part of that gentleman's agreement you have heard about, where we did not go above Tuville because this stretch had traditionally been non-motorized users and fishing guides. And so we all went down south because if they go in at Dodge, they go in at Tacoma, they go in at Shady Cove, they go in at Casey Park, they go in at the dam. You float down and your last comfortable takeout was Tuville. Why that has been such a benchmark for decades. You want to raft in Gold Hill, you better know what you're doing because you got some big classes there. I've done the wild and scenic. I have done every stretch that is raftable, that is jet boatable. And I don't understand why you would hurt those who we were trying to protect, allow the continued degradation of our ecological systems and our wildlife. It's worse than if you had done nothing. What you're proposing hurts those we were trying to protect and does nothing about the conflicts May to September, that's when all the rafters, all the kayakers, they're not down here in October and November. The only ones that need a motorboat then are the fishing guides, are the few recreational users. I say get rid of your whole rule. It's a waste. It's not helping anybody, and it's actually hurting those that we had hoped to protect along with the river. But what you've done is say F you to those of us, thousands. It's not just riverfront users.
Thank you, Ms.
Thousands
James.
of
Your
us,
time,
you know it.
time's is up. All right, now moving on to Michelle Bashaw.
I'm just here to listen and take notes. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Varner.
I'm here to listen.
Okay, thank you. Noah Robinson. Star
Can you hear
6 to unmute. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yeah, this is Senator Noah Robinson. I'm concerned about the rule, particularly the rule, the new rules about the Dodge Bridge, and the flow rate. I'm concerned because we do appear to be targeting one jet boat user. This is, of course, a very valuable industry, and I understand that people raise concerns about the wildlife and so forth in the river. But these concerns should be based on factual data. We ought to have some studies on this. From what I've been told, the only study that's out there has basically said that powerboat users are the least impactful user of the river, and so that it's targeting them is unfair. So I think we need to go back and look at the data carefully and collect some data before we start making new rules. Restricting any additional rules impact everybody. I realize it's a mixed-use river. You need to be fair to everybody. But when we've had power boats operating for 10 years up that river, it just isn't fair to then suddenly be trying to regulate them and causing them trouble. So all this stuff should be, I'm a scientist, it should be based on hard scientific data. I very much doubt that any of this is really impacting the wildlife. And I think we need to go back and look at it carefully from that perspective. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Now we have Mr. Blazer.
Hello, appreciate can you hear me okay?
We can.
All right, appreciate the opportunity to come before you again. Basically, my concern is somebody getting hit by a jet boat. And it's not that it's commercial, it's any jet boat. And I've got one traditionally. I've lived above Dodge Bridge for probably since 1972. And I'm a frequent user of all parts of the river floating. And I've testified before. I saw one young kid get run over. But my concern is the river and the tributaries themselves. My concern is these new mini jet boats that are coming out. It's going to turn it into a freeway, and there should be rules for anything above Table Rock and any tributary that goes in there. We're gonna end up with a big freeway of boats. It takes a special knowledge to run a jet boat. You can't just get in one if you don't know how to run them and don't know how they operate. And it's just a formula for disaster. And what I'd like to be provided at the end of all this is the reason for your coming to these findings, something written, because so many of us have written in or testified, yet it feels insulting to not get an answer back. Like, okay, we saw this, and here's how we came up with these decisions. So I would request that. I request that you protect our little tributaries from these mini jet boats, as well as there should be a special license for anyone traveling on that river. I've used it traditionally from Table Rock Road down for many, many years, and I am proposing that you shut this thing down with 10 horse or whatever it takes from Table Rock up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blazer. Now we have a gentleman by the name of Nick. Go ahead and testify if that's what you want to do. I think you're on mute. I think we can see your camera just turned off. There we go. Now we can hear you.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, just wanted to comment on the 1350. It doesn't seem like it's backed by evidence. It also seems as if ODF and W picked that number for a specific reason. They can influence flows on the river, so it seems a little bit colluding. I'd like to see why they chose that number specifically. It also is targeting one specific user. If they have legitimate environmental concerns, then they need to factor in other people's impact, homeowners that have destroyed riparian areas, anglers that walk across the shallows or drag their boats, the countless rafters that throw trash and other objects into the river, including themselves and dragging their boats and people over the shallows. So to target one specific user is not right. This is a public use river. It always has been. You talk about people living along the river for years. Well, jet boats have been part of the Rogue Valley history for as long as people have been running the river as well. Starting in the 1950s, first jet boat started surfacing up in the 1960s, and that's been a huge economy for the Rogue Valley. Multiple boat builders routinely operate their jet boats to test them out and to do demos and train law enforcement professionals on how to properly run them. Going back to Don's comment, yeah, you do need a special skill set. And so not having the ability to run on a river right in those manufacturers' backyard is a big deal. And so I don't think that's right or fair to those people that have been in business for a long time. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We would request that people who are still participating, that they just, sit and watch the hearing, not add additional comments. Now, last person we have is a individual N Chin. If you're available, please feel free to provide your comments. Looks like they've dropped off. Is there anybody who previously said that they weren't going to provide comment, have changed their minds? Feel free to raise your hand. So I don't see any hands. What we're going to do, we're holding this meeting till 1 o'clock. So we're going to go ahead and turn off the camera and essentially go into recess until we have an individual who joins the meeting and wants to testify. At that point, we'll restart the camera. We have been recording and the recording will continue. And so until somebody joins, we're in recess. I think comments will be on. So if somebody has a question about the process, we can entertain that if it's appropriate. Otherwise, we're adjourned or we're in recess until further notice. Thank you. So we're back from a break. Oh, we did have a person join us, but it looks like they dropped off again. All right, so we're going back on break. We're back. We had Dan Patterson join us. Dan, if you would like to provide testimony, you're welcome to do so. We're giving everybody 3 minutes to testify. I didn't say this before, but there are open written comment period until January 21st. So anybody who testified or anybody who chose not to testify has the opportunity to provide written comment. So with that, Dan, did you have any questions about the process? You are muted.
Okay, no, I was just trying to join the meeting and see how it was going. I'm a resident right at Rattlesnake Rapids.
Okay, so we've heard testimony from everybody and we're just opening testimony again as people join. If you'd like to testify, you've got 3 minutes, but your choice.
I have submitted a written testimony.
Okay, so you don't want to give a verbal testimony at this point?
No, I think, well, okay, I will. As a resident, as a boater, I have drift boats, I have power boats, I build boats, I build raft frames. I think the restriction below 2 vel might be a little bit more than what's necessary because a lot of folks use the river year round, and specifically boat manufacturers with power boats, and they use that stretch down there. And there's only a few homes down there would be affected by boats running up and down the river. Now, when it gets above 2 vel, it gets a little bit more complicated because there are a lot of folks up here. Like I say, I'm right at Rattlesnake Rapids, and I have not had any issues with any power boats coming up. They turn around in my front yard. It's not a big deal, but I'm sure that it irritates some folks, and that's why we're where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patterson. John, you just joined us. We're giving everybody the opportunity to provide 3 minutes of testimony. Vast majority of people who joined have already testified. So if you would like to testify, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead and unmute yourself and we're ready to hear your testimony. Oh, no problem. Thank you, Mr. Ball.
He's
Oh, okay.
It's John's name.
Okay.
He's gonna call.
I apologize. I think the John that joined us is not Mr. Ball that we heard from earlier. Hi, John. Are you, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. So
Okay.
feel free to provide your testimony if that's what you'd like to do.
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Gorman. I've been a part-time resident of Shady Cove for more than 30 years and guiding on the Upper Road for that period of time. So today I'm calling to request that the Oregon State Marine Board, as the one group that can do anything to affect changes on the Upper Road, to please hear our case and affect the change, if you would please. This morning, I'm currently in the state of Washington. I toured the National Fish Hatchery here in Leavenworth, Washington, on the Icicle River, and I took a tour to again be confronted with the reiteration that salmon and steelhead are fragile species, and there are many man-made intrusions that hurt their life cycle, potentially limiting their numbers. So the Upper Rogue is my concern, and what is happening to the fish there. Even though we had good counts of salmon this year, the spring Chinook, on my section of the river, which is primarily from Rattlesnake Rapids down to Two Bell Park, sometimes I'm on that river 7 days a week, late July through November. And I see the fish where they are or where they aren't. And historically, a couple of areas I'm greatly concerned about, even though we had good counts of salmon this year at the hatchery. Two primary spawning areas, Constance Creek and the North Bank across from Upper Two Bell Park, there were very, very few salmon spawning. And I think in large part that's due, and I've seen it deteriorate over that 30-year period in recent years because of the Rogue Jet Boat Adventures activity there. They have to run those boats at high speed over shallow water in areas that are utilized or will be utilized by the spring Chinook and the winter steelhead. This year, one of the games I play, as always with my clients, is count the salmon. And we counted very few, even though the numbers in the river were very good in those areas. And it's my belief that the tour boats have leveled those areas, hurt the nurseries, and the fish no longer can utilize those. That's just one thing. Obviously, there's also been a lot of safety concerns, violations filed with the county sheriff on some occasions, many with the Oregon State Marine Board, and as far as I can tell, there's been no action taken at this time. So that's my concern. Alaska seems to care. Their Fish and Game Department commissioned a study, and they acted on it in 1997 to limit the horsepower on the jet boats on the Kenai River to 40 or to 50 horsepower to mitigate the damage done to the fish, to the fisheries.
Mr. Gorman, your 3 minutes is up.
Okay, please.
We appreciate your comment.
Please restrict the boats below the bridge. Thank you.
Thank you. So we did have another caller. It looks like they dropped off. Okay, so we'll be in recess until we get another person who wants to provide testimony. Thank you. All right, we were just joined, excuse me, by Nick, and I'm not even going to guess at your last name. I apologize. So we've been on break until people show up and testify. Majority of people have testified, but if you would like to testify, you have 3 minutes, and whenever you'd like to start, we'll start the timer.
Thank you. Give me a minute. I had not planned on joining and testifying immediately. Wish I had heard more.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll share not having the context of other folks, but my general feeling about this is a really significant impact to a lot of people that run mini jet boats on that part of the river. And so it feels like a particularly premature and very significant decision to kind of kill a full recreational sport where that part of the river is, I would say, like the most accessible and the most enjoyable part of the river to enjoy on a mini jet boat, which is what I particularly care about. And to completely and outright ban them feels like a very massive step. And I think the reasons behind it are pretty varied and like not particularly well substantiated. The environmental impact one feels pretty weak. And that also, I think that's probably the reason why there's the new verbiage about low water. I think there's a lot of studies that do not substantiate the idea that jet boats are like harming salmon beds with the level of water that we have. And so it brings it down to me to other recreational users and other people who don't like the noise of it. And to completely and outright ban it feels like an overreaction. There was like some sort of time sharing agreement or every other week or something like that. That feels like the way to enable multiple users on the river. I would also say that those tributaries, when they are flooded, represent really fantastic mini jet boating opportunities. And there is, I would really argue, no damage to those rivers when they're in the flood state, but that makes them accessible with a mini jet boat. So that we're talking maybe 10 to 20 days out of the year, they go into pretty extreme flood stage where if you can't be running a river where you're actually contacting the bottom with a boat, hardly at all, or you tear up your boat right away. So banning those tributaries is also a really significant impact on people who enjoy mini jet boats and really make use of those like 10 to 20 days a year when those rivers are accessible. I would say when that's happening, whether it's almost always rainy and nasty, and I have never seen someone kayaking or fishing or swimming in those rivers when they're in that state. So I think that again is a removal of a very good access that is not hurting anybody and is kind of like a tangential side effect from this larger, like piece of legislation. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I appreciate your comment. And so I think we're going to go ahead and go off camera and suspend the meeting until somebody else joins us to comment. Thank you very much. Rania, did you have a comment or a question? Oh, you're muted. You're still muted. Can you hear us, Rania? You're still muted, so we can't hear you. We can't unmute you.
Hello?
Yes. Are you just joining us?
Yes, I am.
Hi. So let me give you a little intro. So this is the Upper Rogue River Rule hearing. We've been giving everybody who wants to testify 3 minutes to testify. The vast majority of people have testified, so we're kind of in recess until somebody shows up. So if you'd like to give testimony, you've got 3 minutes, and go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Okay, my name is John Pogue. I am the current president of the Rogue Fly Fishers. I've attended several of these meetings already. I tried to join earlier, but I'm in the middle of a construction project right now, and I've got contractors here, and I had to leave. So I've got about a 10-minute window here, so I can get it done in 3. It just seems to me that these rules are pretty much arbitrary and capricious. You know, every time we do this, you know, it just seems the can gets kicked down the road and kicked down the road again and kicked down the road again. And it seems like it's coming to an end, but I really doubt that it is. It seems like the whole issue behind this is a commercial jet boat operation, and none of the rules really affect this guy at all. You know, and then the other thing is he says that he's a team player and wants a multi-use river area, but he doesn't obey the rules. And recently, I was on the river and I filmed him not obeying the rules. I called the sheriff's department. I filed a complaint, sent the video to the sheriff's department, and they didn't do anything to him. No fine, no nothing. And then there was a guide recently, I believe his name is Gorman, who was videoed by Grimes, marine violation. He gets a ticket in the mail. This is totally one-sided, and it's just plain and simple local politic nepotism. You know, he's friends with all these people, and they're going to do anything to back him up. And the worst part of it is sooner or later, there's going to be an accident, and then it's going to be too late to change the rules. You know, there needs to be a serious safety concern, especially above the Table Rock Road Bridge. That first corner when you come out of Tuvale Park is very narrow, and the corner right above that is very narrow as well. He only has a very small slot to run that boat through. Not to mention the rules, according to Tuvale State Park rules, there is a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit going through the park, and he cannot obey that 10-mile-an-hour speed limit when he comes up through the riffle there, where a lot of the fishermen are. It's impossible to get that boat up on plane at 10 miles an hour. So I just think that you guys need to step back and take a serious look at the testimony that's been provided by Dr. Parker. You know, and the other thing is the original, this is another reason I think it's arbitrary and capricious, is the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife has an in-water work period set up from June 15th through August 31st. At the very least, he should have to obey that in-water work period. You know, no one else can go in and disturb the river outside of those dates. Why should he be able to?
Mr. Pogue,
You know,
your 3 minutes
Yep.
is up. We appreciate you
All right.
coming by and testifying. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
All right, I think we're going to go in recess again until we have somebody else join. I think we got your message, Rania. Thank you. And we'll be back when the next person joins the meeting. Thank you. I'll turn the camera on.
It's
Oh, it's on. Okay. So it's now 1 o'clock. When I'm done talking, it'll be 1 o'clock. So I'd like to thank everybody for participating. Again, a reminder, you can submit written comments up until January 21st. We will be discussing these rules at the board meeting on January 27th. Sorry, 23rd. I had 23 in my mind, but I said 27, my mistake. And so if you'd like to listen into the board meeting, there is a link on our website. It's also open to the public. So thank you for participating, and this meeting is adjourned.